I drove up and parked near the police station in our mid-sized town. My mind was racing, and I needed to get the anger within me under control. I kept telling myself, keep cool, watch your mouth, don't cross the line, don't threaten that asshole, don't get scared, make sure there are witnesses, burn the bastard. I kept telling myself, don't cross the line, don't cross the line, over and over again as I walked towards the entrance to the station. I walked up to this thick bulletproof window and asked in as normal a voice as I could, "Is Officer Jenkins here? I'd like to talk to him." The female officer outside the window asked, "What does this have to do with?" "I'm trying to save his life." This caught her attention. 2 minutes later, this arrogant shit was standing in front of me and smiling as if he recognized me. "Officer Jenkins, I'm David Smith. I assume you know my wife." Now his smile turned into a smirk. I see the word kook wanting to leave his lips. "How can I help you, Mr. Smith?" I thought to myself, I'm going to wipe that grin off your face, you worthless bastard. In the calmest, most innocuous voice I could muster, as if I was reading the news, I said, "I'm here to save your life, although frankly, it's probably too late. You're almost dead already." He didn't take the news very well. "You are threatening me?" He put his hand on his gun when 3 of his police friends heard his words and headed towards us. "Damn coward!" I raised my voice a little so his friends could hear. "Not at all. You've already committed suicide. I just want to make sure you don't kill anyone else." His friends gathered around me, and a female officer behind the glass watched everything that happened. I allowed my voice to return to a normal, non-threatening level. "You see, I saw you leaving my house this morning. When I went inside, I found that the bed I usually sleep on had been torn up, and you had left several stains of your seed on the sheets. My wife told me your name, but now that I see you, I recognize you as the guy who fucked her. So I owe it to you to make sure you understand the full consequences of what you did. If you hit her, you coward, I will rot you. I'll take you out and make you disappear. Interesting threat. I can only assume that your friends here are not involved in your plans to break the law. However, I did not lay a hand on her, and I am not threatening you. I'm just doing my civic duty to make sure no one dies unnecessarily, except I guess you two, but there's nothing I can do about it right now." His cop buddies were now crowded around me. "You see, my wife is HIV positive, and I'm guessing from the cum stains that you fucked her without a condom." His friends took a step back. "About a year and a half ago, I came home early from a business trip, just like this morning, and found her with the guy she works with. I kicked her out and divorced her. About a year later, she tested positive for HIV. The woman she lived with, just a friend from work, kicked her out of the apartment, and her parents disowned her. She showed up at my door with her bag in hand, begging for shelter. Well, she was my ex-wife by then, but it's still hard to look away from all those years together. So I let her stay in my guest room. I'll give her credit. For the first time in my life, she told me the truth. She told me about the positive test result. Needless to say, I haven't had sex with her once since the day I threw her out. I don't know when she caught the virus, but I've been tested several times, and so far I'm still negative. You have to be very careful, right?" By this time, his buddies had taken another 2 steps back, giving Officer Jenkins and me plenty of room, but they were listening intently. "So, here's the thing. As far as I know, my ex hasn't had sex in at least 6 months. She is a compulsive liar and a bit narcissistic. Alcohol doesn't improve her truthfulness. I'm guessing you picked her up at a bar somewhere, or maybe somewhere else. In fact, I do not care. Like I said, she's my ex. I just want to warn you that there is a high chance that you have contracted the virus. It takes about 6 months for it to show up in tests, but in the meantime, you can pass it on to someone else. You're married, aren't you? I could see from the ring on his finger that he was married. If you have sex with your wife, you really need to use a condom until the test results come back. Tell your wife you have a urinary tract infection or something. I'm sure you're already good at lying to her. I saw the hatred in his eyes. He wanted to kill me, but there were witnesses. It's good that I decided to do it at the police station. What kind of bastard would kill a messenger anyway? Well, I just wanted you to know. You need to start getting tested. I doubt my ex will tell you. I nodded, turned, and walked towards the door. Have a good day. As I drove away from the site, I couldn't help but smile on my face. My wife was not HIV positive, and she was not yet my ex-wife. It will, of course, but later. I was honest when I told Officer Jenkins that my wife was unfamiliar with the truth, although I was not entirely honest when I told him that he was infected with AIDS. Well, little lies. It's on my conscience. For the first few miles, I looked in the rear-view mirror, wondering if Officer Jenkins or his friends would follow me. I think they had better things to do. It was funny to think about the chaos that was going on in the precinct. 20 minutes later, I stopped at my favorite diner to meet some friends. I sent them a message this morning. I have friends who are always ready to eat together at a diner. We preferred breakfast, but lunch would do in a pinch. We used to sit and talk, make bad jokes, and exchange insults. My friends knew me too well, and in the middle of the meal, they asked me what was bothering me. Taking a deep breath, I told them, if you can't tell your friends about your problems, who can you tell? I've always said that lunch with friends can be the best therapy a guy can have, and that day they proved me right. They supported me like men, and I knew that their wives would support me too. The rest of lunch was a little gloomy, but I knew I wasn't alone. They told me they would have my back if the dishonest Officer Jenkins came after me. I admit I drove home feeling much better than when I left this morning. This didn't last long. When I got home, there were police cars scattered on the street and a swarm of blue lights on my property. Great. I thought they were coming for me. I was stopped by an officer who seemed to recognize me. Mr. Smith, could you park here and get out of your car? I have to tell you that people know where I am, and I had dinner with 5 witnesses, if you're planning anything. Sir, could you please get out of the car? I went out, stood by my car, and waited. Eventually, a fat detective in a cheap suit approached me. Mr. Smith, could you tell me where you were today? As you probably know, I went to the police station this morning. Then I went to a diner to have lunch with friends. I have witnesses who will confirm that I was there. I would like to know their names, but you are not under suspicion at this time. So can you tell me what's going on, or are you going to keep me in limbo? Neighbors report that shortly before noon, Officer Jenkins drove across your front lawn and crashed his patrol car into your porch. Then he entered your house. We assume there was some kind of confrontation. We have a pretty good idea of what they were arguing about, since your speech at the station this morning did not go unnoticed. Neighbors heard 2 shots. We found your wife and Officer Jenkins dead in the living room. His service revolver was fired twice. My wife was dead, and that bastard was watching me to see my reaction. Unsuspect. My ass. He tried to spin it as best he could to shield the police from any responsibility. You can't live half your adult life with a woman and not feel anything when you're told she's just been killed. For the second time today, I was overcome with anger and grief. I intended to divorce her, but I didn't want her to die. She's not really your ex-wife, is she? You're not actually divorced, are you? No. And this was all just a show at the station this morning to get back at Jenkins, wasn't it? I looked him in the eye and didn't say anything. Well, I guess you got your revenge on both of them. Congratulations. If it were up to me, I would lock you up. But technically, what you did is not against the law. It's just something you have to live with. I'll be okay. I'm not a killer. I'm not like your Officer Jenkins, who shot and killed a woman in cold blood. It didn't take a seasoned detective to read the expressions on the faces of the police officers standing around us. This was the second time today that I was glad to have witnesses. I watched as the ambulance removed 2 gurneys from the house, each with a body bag on it. There was nothing for me to do there, so I returned to my car and headed to my lawyer's office. In the end, I didn't need this divorce anymore, but I better be prepared in case someone decides that lying is a bigger crime than murder. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.